Today we're putting poi patterns front and center, and I'm showing you how you can use your poi to create stars. Drex here from Drex Factor Poi, bringing you the love of poi spinning to benefit your body and brain. And today I am teaching you how you can create some very beautiful patterns painting with light with those poi. Before we dive in, I just want to give a quick shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Flow DNA, Flow Fests, Flow Toys, Pyroterra Light Toys, Spinballs, and Ultrapoi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all of these awesome companies and the work that they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links that I've got down in the description of this video. So most of you that follow my channel were almost certainly expecting a choreography tutorial today. And there will be one back next Friday, but I got kind of a special idea for this Friday and I thought I would share it with you all. A lot of times on this channel, I'll teach a specific trick or a fundamental concept or a framework or what have you. And you know, just something jumped out to me about the idea of being able to create stars with our poi, and it seemed like a good day to do it. Now, normally I avoid references to holidays because my entire audience is worldwide and many live in countries that don't celebrate the same holidays that I do. And quite frankly, I want to make this channel as inclusive as possible. But this struck me as a cool idea, and I think that there's applications that go beyond merely celebrating the holiday of Christmas for what it is in the United States today. So hopefully some of y'all out there will find your own uses for creating 5-pointed stars with your poi. So today, we're going to drill down two different approaches for creating these 5-pointed stars with our poi. One involves anti-spin flowers, and the other involves a interesting kind of corner of the poi world, a curiosity called toroids. Now for both of these, there's going to be one very fundamental thing you're going to have to keep in mind about how these are done. Now, regardless of whether we're using an anti-spin flower or a toroid, we have to use the same basic visualization in order to produce this 5-pointed star. Namely, we have to think of there being a pentagram that goes across our entire body. Spread out your arms and legs, and you'll notice that essentially your body is set up in such a way that it has 5 points already. So really, it's just a challenge of connecting them in the right series. For example, if I'm going to be spinning my poi clockwise, I would usually start by having the first leg of this go from my head to my left leg, the second leg of it go from my left leg to way out around my right hand, and then from my right hand all the way over to my left hand, then from my left hand down to my right leg, and finally back from my right leg up to my head. And I would just go back and forth tracing between all of those different points. Again, head to left leg to right hand to left hand to right leg, back up to my head. In fact, you should just practice this with your hand right quick to get a good feel for it. And it should be said, of course, that if your dominant direction of spin is counterclockwise, then your instructions are going to go from your head to your right leg, out to your left side, out to your right side, back down to your left leg, and then up to your head. Yeah? So pick whichever one feels easiest for you. All right, so now we actually have to do the work of putting the pieces together. Here's how we're going to start. So the first piece of this puzzle you're going to need is a tool called a linear extension. Basically, it involves having the poi going around your hand as you move your hand straight back and forth in a straight line. This could be up and down, it could be side to side, and it can be on a diagonal. In fact, I think we're going to have to work with each and every one of these different segments. The idea is, though, is you want to make sure that the poi only spins once around your hand as it moves along that segment and back. So, for example, if I'm going up and down, I can feel the poi going up with my hand and down with my hand. If I'm going side to side, then I'm dragging the poi under one way and it's popping over my hand the other way. Yeah? I actually did an entire tutorial just on linear extensions and their applications for a variety of different poi shapes. So I'll go ahead and link to that tutorial down in the description as well as up in the cards if you happen to be watching this video on YouTube, because it's going to be real handy here. All right, so with that in mind, we can actually take that pattern and just connect the dots, literally and figuratively. If I start with the poi spinning up around my head and everything, I can reach it down to my left foot, out to my right hand side, over to my left hand side, back down to my right foot, and then up to my head. Thinking left foot, right foot, up, left foot, right foot, up. You'll notice that as I'm doing this, I'm both trying to spin the poi as slowly as I can, as well as really trace out these lines very slowly with my hand as well. That way I can take as much time as I need to think in between each of these points. One bad habit that a lot of us learn during our poi journey is that we really focus on trying to keep the poi spinning as we're moving it. This is not one of those times where you need to focus on keeping the poi spinning. In fact, it's going to be your goal to keep it spinning as little as possible. Think instead that you're trying to slide the poi into a slot at each corner of this, yeah? You don't want to necessarily be thinking about keeping the poi moving so much as you want to think about getting the poi to land right in that spot, if that makes any kind of sense. So part of what I think makes this flower cool is that it's the only flower that I'm aware of that takes multiple beats with the hand to complete. Let me show you what I mean. If you think about the movement of the hand as being going around in a circle as much as it is tracing out all those straight lines, let's count the number of times that the hand has to go past our hips in order to complete this move. If I'm starting at my head and I'm going down to my left hip and then over to my right hand side, it's gone past my hips once. As I go over to the left and then down to my right hip or right foot, it's gone past my hips twice. Now, as I go back up to the top, we'll see that I've completed 2 hand paths in order to complete this one shape. For the most part with other anti-spin flowers, whether they be triquetras or say 4-petal anti-spin flowers, whichever shape we're producing with the poi coincides with the hand completing only one repetition of that hand path. That is, I can get all 4 petals of that 4-petal anti-spin flower with my hand going past my hips just once. Whereas when I try doing this 5-pointed star, there's literally no way that it can be done without my hand having to go past my hips twice. And I think that's really cool. It's one of these interesting ways that mathematics catches up to us in ways that we might not expect. There are definitely other patterns that we play with, for example, Zan's diamond, that require multiple downbeats with the hand in order to complete the pattern. But this is the only anti-spin flower that I can think of that has that kind of characteristic to it. And as it turns out, this is also a tool that you can use for my favorite classification of poi tricks. That's right, anti-brids. In fact, what you can do is set a static spin against that pentagram and the two will fit together perfectly. It feels like just a little bit of a tweak from, say, like a triquetra versus static spin to get there. You just think that you're going to add that little bit where the poi is kind of sweeping across the middle. And guess what? You're right there. Pretty cool, huh? I really like busting this one out on occasion, if for no other reason than it'll take people a second to try and figure out if you're doing a triquetra versus static or a isolation versus horizontal cat eye. Because technically speaking, you could argue that there are parts of both in this. Either way, it's a really cool pattern. Okay, so we have played around with this 5-pointed star as an anti-spin flower, but you may be noticing that there's a lot of curves in there for a shape that's more like a star. And there is actually a trick that we can do with poi that is closer to our normal conception of these pentagrams, but it involves radically changing our approach to how we're spinning them. So toroids are a very different segment of poi tricks. Namely, we're kind of throwing out the idea of trying to produce downbeats in a 2-dimensional space, and instead we're opening the poi up to moving in 3-dimensional space. Namely, you want to think of the movement of the poi as happening around the outside of a donut that's sitting in front of you. I know that's kind of weird to conceptualize, and fortunately I have a whole bunch of videos that I have done on the basic theory of toroids, as well as many of the basic tricks that make them up. So once again, I'll go ahead and link to that down in the description, as well as up in the cards if you happen to be watching this video on YouTube. But the basic theory, at least when it comes to doing this 5-pointed star, this pentagram, is going to be this. You're going to make sure that people can only see the very, very edge of your plane at all times. This is a thing that we normally avoid like the plague with poi, but toroids are one of those few use cases where it's actually encouraged. So basically what's going to happen is you want to start the poi either in a buzzsaw plane or over here on the outside of your arm. I think you get a little bit more control over the plane when it's in buzzsaw plane here, and have it at a slight diagonal. When it goes up to the top here, we're going to switch the angle over to that diagonal pointed down towards your left foot. This may be feeling kind of reminiscent of something we've already played with, right? From here, as it goes past your left foot, you're going to kind of switch it over into a horizontal plane, like you are trying to do a corkscrew instead, right? You want the poi to be able to go out away from you, and as it's coming back on the left-hand side, boom, we're going to drop it back into kind of a diagonal / vertical plane. Now it's going back and forth between your right foot and your head. And when it gets up to your head, you're going to switch it over to being on a diagonal pointed down towards your left foot. Guess what? We're not done yet, because we have to do all of that stuff over again in order to complete this pattern. So as it's going down and away from you past your left foot, you're going to swing it out onto a horizontal, again like you're trying to switch into a corkscrew. And as it is going around past your left-hand side here, you're going to let it go down into that diagonal between your head and your right foot that we started with. So you're going to think it's going to go away from you, down to your left foot. It's going to go towards you, out to your right. It's going to go towards you, down to your right foot, and it's going to go away from you, up across the top. Now it goes away from you, over onto the horizontal, away from you, down towards your right foot, and finally back away from you as you start the move over at the beginning. In other words, you have to go through this pattern twice once again. Hey, remember that pattern, in order to be able to get back to the poi spinning the same direction as where you started, and of course in the same orientation where you started it too. And I know that seems really confusing. The way that I keep this straight is I literally just think of it as I'm going to do half of a two beat, half of a corkscrew. Half of a two beat, half of a corkscrew, half of a two beat, half of a corkscrew, half of a two beat, half of a corkscrew. And I'm also going to show you this from the side because I know that it's confusing. I'm going to go ahead and start with my poi turning forwards in front of me in buzzsaw plane here. And first it's going to start kind of tilted over to the right, and then I'm going to tilt it slightly over to the left. And from here, I'm going to switch it over into a horizontal plane. Now, as I have it in horizontal plane, if I were to look from below it up to the ceiling, it would look like the poi was spinning clockwise, right? Now, as it's going out to my left-hand side, I'm going to drop it into a vertical plane, and look at that. Now the poi is spinning reverse instead of forwards. Well, when it reaches the top, I switch it to having the bottom pointing down towards my left foot, and as it's going away from me, I switch it into a horizontal plane here. And as it's going out away from me, again, if I look up at this from down below, it looks like it is going counterclockwise. As it's going away from me over on the left-hand side here, I'm going to boom, let it drop into a vertical plane, and now it's looking like it's spinning forwards again, yeah? So think forwards, forwards, around, reverse, reverse, around. Forwards, forwards, around, reverse, reverse, around. I'm going to include some POV footage for you too, so you can help to decode some of this. So yeah, this one is just a little bit counterintuitive, but here's the thing. When you get trails on these, this is the most perfect five-pointed star that you're going to get with poi, specifically because when you're showing these planes straight from the front, it actually creates the straight lines that you're looking for with it. So yeah, that's two options for five-pointed stars, one of which is probably something that's not too far off of what you're already used to. The other one might be a little bit exotic, but I think the results are pretty cool. And you might be noticing that both of these are really dependent upon being able to see the trails of what the poi is doing, whether you're doing long exposure photography or you're adding trails in post and everything. And you would be right about that. So on Monday, I'm going to be dropping a video that is going to be completely devoted from beginning to end, the entire process that you want to go through in order to try and do some trails videos, whether you've got a smartphone, whether you've got a DSLR, what have you. So be on the lookout for that to drop. And in the meantime, take these tricks to Instagram and show me your best stars. I can't wait to see. Please tag me. I am DrexFactor on Instagram, and you can use the hashtag DrexFactorPoi to show me your hard work. Awesome. Please make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, both to help other people find this video as well as to help my channel grow. And of course, a huge thank you, because this video would not be possible without the kind contributions of these amazing folks right here. These are my Flow patrons over on Patreon, and they, along with the wonderful folks listed down in the description, help to make this video and all the videos on this channel possible. If you would like to sign up to support my mission of bringing the love of poi spinning to the wider world and helping people connect with their brains and their bodies, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi and signing up. You could get early access to all of my content as well as a say in what topics I tackle in the future. Plus which, you get some nice extras and behind the scenes content there on occasion too. So go and check that out. Please and thank you. All right, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope that the year is coming to a close for you in the most positive way possible, and I am looking forward to what 2021 brings for us all. Yeah? Awesome. Take care of each other out there. Make sure you wear a mask, and let's go take on this new year together. Peace.